Roger Bailey for Blues Time in the City. Your weekend stop for the best in blues and southern soul. This weekend, right here.
KUAW listeners, this is Carl Boyd for Wave Your Grades, coming to you every Saturday from 1 until 2 p.m. right here on KUAW. This program features American students striving for excellence in honor of our troops and American veterans, encouraging American students. Please join us every Saturday from 1 until 2 p.m.
Hooping bud.
The black one. Make it seem like I'm doing some presidential stuff. Can you hear me, brother?
Yeah, I got you now, bro.
All right, man. Cool. See, you got the young prince with you today.
Yeah, man. Wait on his mom to get here. It's about his bedtime. So.
Oh yeah. Mine goes to bed about 8:30. 8:30.
Yeah. How old are yours?
Oh, 4.
4.
Yeah, 1 4-year-old. Okay, we.
He's 18 months, so he's still 7. He's still 7 o'clock. He got to work his way up. He got to earn his stripes to get that 8 o'clock.
All right, you ready to roll?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, we got the live video out, Mr. Walker? Oh, I'm already out. Okay. All right. Well, let's go ahead and make this party started. Get this party started. This is Tyrone Gethers Jr., your host of The Source of the Inkwell. You can check out this broadcast on a number of ways. You can hit us up on KUAW.org. You can go to KUAW on YouTube. Type in KUAW Radio. You can also go to KUAW on Facebook. You can also go to KUAW on Twitter, on Periscope, and on Twitch. Yeah, so KUAW is one of the, if not the fastest growing internet radio station in Kansas City, Missouri. Now, I want to say that I missed you all. I was, football season. It was going for a while. We had parent conferences. Then, of course,
crazy out here, isn't it?
You said what now?
It's crazy out here.
Yeah, very crazy. And then also, it's just, family lost a pillar of the family. So this, show shout out to my Uncle Timmy. Love you much. Appreciate you. Strong supporter of the show. I'm going to miss seeing them kind of chime in down there and watching the broadcast. But if you have any other questions, comments, and concerns, hit us up at 816-599-6893 or KUAW95@gmail.com. This is a social distancing episode via Zoom. Got one of my brothers on here, Brother Cornell Ellis. What's going on, my man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me. This is Lil Leon Ellis for all y'all out there checking out the next generation of leaders. He'll be chiming in and out this evening as well.
Okay.
Thanks for having me, Tyrone. How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing fine, man. Blessed, man. Blessed. And, I definitely appreciate you for reaching out and saying, hey, really we kind of reached out to each other playing tag. Wanted to, get you back on the air. I wanted to, I wanted you back on or whatnot. So, what's been up? I know last time we checked, or I checked in with you, you were a teacher, and now you're.
Yeah.
I think you changed. You're still teaching, but you kind of shifted gears a little bit.
Yeah. So that was last year, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and share my journey. Looking back on this, we'll probably be able to catch every piece of the journey through KUAW.
Right. Yeah, for real.
I've officially stepped out to be the full-time executive director of Brothers Liberating Our Communities now. So
okay,
I'm working for myself, and the journey or the mission has become my full-time work. I love my kid-facing role. I love working directly with students in the classroom. But when I saw the large spread and wide affecting inequities in the education system, I knew that my talent and my impact could not be measured by just a classroom. I had to step out and expand my impact in a certain way. And I put my stake in the ground around representation. There's not enough black male educators in the country. 2% actually, right? While 85%, upwards of 90% are white women teachers, administrators. And when we talk about representation, or we talk about kids having teachers that look like them, that's what increases achievement. That's what increases opportunities. And therefore, it starts to help change the next generation. You talk about a time right now in COVID, man, we are in danger of losing a generation of kids and learners. We have to step up. We have to do something to be able to say, when we look back on this, we're on the right side of history.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because not only are we on the brink, on the brink of losing a generation of students, we're also on the brink of a large exodus of teachers from the profession. Now, previously when you and I were talking earlier, and and the thing I like about you, man, is like we say we want to talk about one thing, but the conversation goes all over the place. So I think I don't know, man. Maybe COVID is like a blessing in disguise to the oppressor, keeping us apart. But the thing I want to say, you had mentioned it's a social emotion month, if I'm saying that right. Yeah, and
mental awareness
month. Yeah. And when you said that, it made me think about all of the struggles that are going on with this pandemic, and especially it's really hitting schools hard. From being in the classroom, I'm seeing a lot in regards to this mental emotion, just just tearing people apart in regards to what this thing is doing. So, from your vantage point, are you seeing it a lot too in our field?
And I want to encourage the people that are watching and chiming in to give us their experiences and struggles as well, because there's so many that I know that I won't be able to speak to what you may be struggling with,
right?
What our listeners may be struggling with. But I think that, and I want to hear them too, and so we can talk about them. But I think the one that I'm seeing the most is this tension between parenting and teaching. A lot of teachers are parents, and when schools close because of the pandemic, now you're thinking about double duty, right? Where, just today I've been sitting here in this exact spot and back-to-back Zoom calls with the 18-month-old kind of running around, and it's hard to do both. I'm not even teaching, right? And there are some teachers out here that are trying to manage 35 kids in a Zoom room, trying to manage 2 or 3 kids of their own, getting logged in to a Zoom room, or trying to figure out the technicalities of different other schools and other platforms. And at the same time, receiving feedback from all these places, right? Their administrators may be giving them feedback about their work performance. Their kids are constantly giving them feedback about whether or not they're giving them enough attention or not. And we're constantly worried about our own health, right? It's the health of our families. It's the health of my household, but it's also the health of my community and the students that I deal with, right?
Right.
Teaching is such an emotional burden. I bring home all the struggles of my kids, and the same fear that I have about contracting a deadly disease in my own household is the same fear that I struggle with my students who live with their grandmothers, who live in smaller enclosed spaces, who ride public transportation, who may not have the basic necessities to get through a couple months without paychecks, right?
Right.
It's multiple sources of stress that are on teachers right now.
Yeah, it is, and you made a good point where you said you have parents and teachers, because like they're telling us that we need to keep a lookout for the kids on our Zoom conferences, on our Zoom calls. But then you have your own children at home, right, being educated too. So,
we got to keep an eye on them too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I've had teachers tell me that their jobs told them you need to teach without distractions. They said, "What do you mean by that?" If you have kids in the house or kids in the room, they can't be around. I'm like, well, how is that possible? You got an 18-month-old. I got a 4-year-old. So how is that possible for me not to take care of my child too? Now, I noticed that while I was at home, when everything was shut down, my 4-year-old had online school too for pre-K, which was weird. And I looked on there and I saw this young man had 3 hours of stuff for a 4-year-old. Man. And I'm like, no, we're not doing all this. So I'm thankful that the teacher went on ahead and said, look, let me go ahead and remedy this and make it a little bit shorter. But that was ridiculous. So right there, I was stressing out. I saw my little one stressing out because he didn't know what was going on because he did all of his lessons when I got off of work, and he's like, what's going on here? Because I can't do the live Zoom sessions.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, the teacher-parent problem is one that I'm really faced with and struck with as an executive director. When I was still teaching last year, I think that like what you're talking about, and just in terms of the need for schools and teachers to adjust and do things that are developmentally appropriate for kids in this time is such I know that we've got a better handle on it this year, listening to families and listening to kids about how long is too long to be on a Zoom call. How many hours of actual work do you need to engage students in learning? What does online and engagement learning actually look like, and success actually look like? These are questions that schools are having to reconsider, having to really think about in terms of how do we come out of COVID with a new idea or a new understanding of what education is, and quite frankly, who education serves. Because we know schools wasn't built for Black folks.
No.
Right? Schools wasn't built for people of color and poor people to be successful. So how can we take this opportunity, schools breaking down, systems no longer going to be there, jobs that will never return? How can we take this opportunity to build something new and different?
You know, I'm glad you said that because one of my mentors told me, she said, hey, you know, school segregation still exists. I said, what are you talking about? This is when I first started teaching like years ago. And she said, school segregation still exists based on the zip code. She said, wherever that zip code is, that's how they manage school segregation. And then like when I was getting deeper and deeper into the profession, I started seeing that more and more and more, how you would see certain populations of students in certain zip codes and with certain complexions and with certain socioeconomic backgrounds are served more. So when I look at this whole, you know, Zoom and virtual education, I'm seeing a lot of disparities, even with that, in schools with children of color.
Yeah.
You know, and in districts that serve students who are of a low socioeconomic rate. And, and it's messed up that you would think that a pandemic would give everybody an even playing field. It's still not.
It's the opposite.
It's total opposite. Total opposite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when the pandemic first hit back in March, we had a very stark realization that less than 50% of students in the Kansas City public school area didn't have adequate access to online services. They didn't have hotspots. They didn't have personal computers. They didn't have bandwidth in their neighborhoods where every single kid and parent can be on Zoom calls all at once. So we saw some exacerbated inequalities when it comes to just tech and access. Not to mention, and I won't name any names, but right now I'm doing some private tutoring work too for some students that are in more affluent neighborhoods. And when I'm, you know, all kids are struggling online. It's just a fact, right? Even a lot of my former students that hated going to school are talking about how much they miss being in person, how much they miss working with teachers. That's going to show up in the achievement, in their grades, and in their data. It already is, right? The lack of engagement. I only came here because I had to actually be somewhere. I'm not going to wake up and log in, right?
Right.
Well, these other families that have more resources, like with money to hire a private tutor like myself. I'm sorry, buddy. They have the opportunity to, again, like hire somebody to make sure their kid is getting through schoolwork, to bring somebody in privately to meet with them on a weekly basis to make sure that they have everything they need to continue advancing in school. We're going to come out of this pandemic, unfortunately, and see that the achievement gaps and the opportunity gaps have grown because people don't have the resources to be able to get this one-on-one attention that they need. And now we're seeing even more crowded classrooms, 45, 50 kids in a Zoom room, or kids not showing up at all. And people in under-resourced communities don't have the opportunities or the resources to help close these opportunity gaps.
And yeah, and I've noticed that as well too, because when this whole thing happened this past March, the gap started widening more and more and more and more. Now, I do know that one particular school district, I want to say it's KCPS, they did try to remedy the situation by putting hotspots on school buses and strategically putting their school buses in certain neighborhoods so kids can get access, which, great idea. Now, one thing I am seeing, though, in other school districts where there are majority children of color or, you know, Title I, the socioeconomic situations is where the teachers aren't fully prepared. Now, I have teachers coming to me telling me that here it is, we'll be in December next week, and there are students that still have issues with technology. Now, I admit there are some kids that are probably kind of using that to their advantage, but for the most part, though, I personally felt the schools had between March and August, to get this whole thing situated. And the fact that we still, that we're in December and we still have children that have issues, like there were students that I had taught, the grandma told me, hey, I don't have internet. So what I did was I drove into the parking lot of the school, when the weather was still nice and my, grandkids were outside typing, using a hotspot like that. And I said, whoa, that's deep. So then our school district started providing hotspots to people. So, I mean, I know we talk about, the school issue and what they do. I kind of want to touch on something else too, because I know you and I can, we're here. When I first met you, I said, yeah, man, we can do this. Now, I'm also seeing another disparity. And the other disparity that I'm seeing that's going towards our children are teachers who are doing all they can to, how can I say this? You know how they say you got some good cops, you got some bad cops? Well, you got some good teachers, you got some bad teachers. Now, you have some teachers who are trying all they can to do what they can to make this whole thing work. And then you got some that are really pimping this. And there's a whole lot of individuals who are really pimping this, and their classrooms are suffering. Now, are you kind of noticing that too?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like you said, even before this, we had teachers that was pimping it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, teachers that was getting by on the bare minimum, right? Preparation-wise, relevancy-wise, innovation-wise. And I think that those same lazy teachers are the same lazy teachers we see now. Right. It's unfortunately, like you said, now they have even less accountability. They have even less responsibilities. They really ain't got to go nowhere, right? It's very easy to be an ineffective online teacher. You get the Google Classroom, you post an assignment, kids don't log in, that's their problem. Kids don't understand the content, that's their problem, right? And that's just kind of it, and grade them based off what they have. The same teachers who were putting in hours and their livelihood of passion and effort to get engagement from their kids in person and to create strong classrooms in person are still doing it right now. And there are, I had a lot of conversations with school leaders and teachers. We can look at virtual teaching as a detriment. We can look at Zoom calls as holding us back or not giving kids opportunities, or we can look at it as an opportunity to be multimedia and use different types of Google searches and teach kids different skills in a virtual world. Right. We have to be able to look at it from an asset-based lens, right? Like, yeah, I could very easily just do the bare minimum, or I could post 4 or 5 videos, give them 2 or 3 websites, have them Google and find something, and weave in different standards and really make this lesson robust. Yes. Because they have a whole computer in front of them. They have the whole world in front of them, right? Like, how many times in class are we saying, oh, we don't have the resources to do that, or we don't have the abilities to get our kids to do that? Well, now you do. They got a whole Chromebook. They do. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. They got, it's like literally like when you watched Avengers and Tony Stark started doing all this with all the tech. That's how the kids are, man. I mean, they got that now. Like I do a broadcast club with our students, and some of the parents were like, yeah, I still want my kids to go to the radio station. And some other parents said, well, how are you going to do this? I said, very simple. I said, like right now, myself and Cornell are doing a Zoom call, and we're able to take this Zoom call and put it through the radio waves and pipe it through different methods for radio entertainment. So now we're going to be teaching students to do this. So we're taking the tech that they see in front of them every day, and we're teaching them you can do different things with it. Yep. So I mean, it's all about taking the lemon you have and making lemonade out of it. Right. And that's something that, Black folks are great at. We got a history of taking the least and making it the most. And I think that this situation is no different. Urban schools, urban leaders, I've been on very encouraging conversations and calls over the last month with school leaders that are really trying to re-envision and reimagine what school can look like after this in a more equitable fashion. And people are really adamant about, like I said, not coming out of this as ineffective as we were before.
Yeah. Now one plus I see is there's no such thing as a snow day. Now, of course, we'll be at home, but we can still teach. And we can get out in May. Right. I won't be getting out in July. But yeah, right. I mean, yeah, so there's no snow day. So school will not be canceled, which is a good thing. I can sit up in the safety of my own home with my child and say, hey, look, okay, we can still teach. You can still learn. And, you know, that's the beauty of it. You know, also another thing, I have students who are traveling or miss class. I can record the class. Here's the recorded class. You know, so, you know, at first when I came in, I was very skeptical. But then I started thinking like you, brother. And I was like, you know, I can see a lot of positive things coming out of this that can help us out. Now, let's say you got a situation in class. Parents talking about, oh, not my child. Oh, yes, your child. Yes, your child. Play. And you know what, man? And you'd be surprised how that's been helping me out. You know, well, let me tell you, like, I had a kid tell me, hey, can I redo an assignment? I'm like, nah, my man. I mean, you know, we went through it in class. We went over it in class. I did it step by step for you in class. I showed you everything in class from my lens. I said, and you just, you know, you didn't do it. He said, but I redid it though. I said, nah, brother, when I was doing the assignment, what were you doing? Let me go back and, you know, scroll back through the footage. You was playing with your toys. And then I called his mom and dad. Mom and dad was like, oh, yeah, we good. We got you.
Right.
So, you know, yeah.
And I've kind of heard, it's interesting because I've kind of heard both ways of that. With the culturally irrelevant parents or I'm sorry, culturally irrelevant teachers, these white teachers that be performing trauma on our kids on a daily basis.
Oh, yeah.
They complain about being in families' living rooms, right? They're like, oh, this is like a breach of privacy. There are some schools I've seen that are actually having families sign waivers to not have families in the room while teachers are teaching, which is mind-blowing to me, right? But from where we come from and from really effective teachers and from relevant teachers, this is bad, please.
Yeah. I mean, because
in on my class, I love it when I have parents come sit in on my class because now you can see exactly what your kid is doing and what he's not. You know?
I like that because that's my most successful years is when I have parents making them pop-up visits. And like also, I told a young teacher, I said, man, look, I said, your name needs to be a household name in your students' dinner table. If they're not talking about you at home, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, you're not doing your job. So now the parent can see you. They sitting right next to you and hearing you. And now check this out. That same kid, I sent out an email, and I'm able to do this too. You can email real quick. The boy's mama came in, put the email down right in front of him, and said, explain this, and walked out of the room. Because it was an email I sent about the work not being done. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And when the other kids saw that, they were like, oh, I'm next. So, yeah. So I got an influx in that class.
Real, man.
Yeah, it's real. You know,
you can build relationships with parents because parents now see who you are. They can hear the way you instruct. They get behind your passion. And you build that relationship with the parent where it's like, look, oh, Johnny don't want to turn his camera on. Oh, Johnny don't want to do no work today. Oh, I call Johnny mama. She right next door.
Yep. Hey, now, you know, I had one parent. She said, oh, hold on, Mr. Gethers. Let me look. I got a camera shot on him right now. She said, well, he's online. I said, well, ma'am, I said, he's not in my class. Hold on real quick. His camera came on. He was mad. And I looked up, and in that back corner, mom had a camera watching him. So, you know, it's so much parents can do. Like, I hear parents say, well, I don't know what to do with this situation. Can you help me keep my kid online? I said, well, you got to be creative. You know, if I were you, request the videos of the classes. And if you don't see your child active in that video, there you go. You got them. We record everything. So request that.
And how much easier is that? Like, I remember as being a teacher and how much I hated getting daily phone calls from parents about like updates about, like, I did it, right? And I obliged because I appreciated the parents' engagement, but that was such like an extra burden for me. How much easier is it for a teacher right now to click send on a class recording?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or how easy is it, like, you know, you tell the kid, hey, stay after class, and you pause the Zoom, get everybody else out, and then you invite the parent in with them right there and say, okay, parent conference. Automatic. Yeah, automatic. You know, man, I'm telling you, I've done so much stuff. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, parents, the teachers have tools. Okay, if parents are listening, if you are struggling with monitoring your child, we record everything. Request a recording of the class and say, hey, look, can I see what my child's doing in that class for a play-by-play? I mean, you know, we're in this together. I mean,
and you can't come at me telling me how you know some parents are always on their kid's side. Well, he said teacher did this. Okay, let's watch the recording. It's all right there.
Oh, even with attendance, my kid was in class all week. Really now? Your kid must be the invisible man, or wearing the emperor's clothes. You know,
or maybe logging in under somebody else's name.
Oh yeah, that too. Or I had or also, and then also you can find out other hiccups too. Like one student claimed she had computer issues. Turns out she had the wrong Zoom codes, so we were able to fix that. So you know, a lot of stuff comes out with this. You know, so I feel that parents and teachers need to work together on this, because when it comes down to it, the people upstairs, you know, they like to cause a division between parents and teachers. You know, and that's information for another show right there. I remember someone told me, they said, Mr. Gethers, how come you don't want to be an administrator? I said, well, I like keeping positive relationships with parents. And I said, and I'm not talking about all administrators. Most districts that I've worked in, you see administrators kind of putting that wedge between, some trying to put a wedge between parents and teachers, making it seem like, okay, I know I'm messing up, but I'm gonna make it seem like Cornell's messing up and not me. I see a lot of that going on. I've seen a lot of that going on. So I always told myself that I would get in the district where I see, like, for example, we had I just mentioned that my uncle passed, and the principal of that school came to the house the day my uncle passed to talk to my cousin. Wow. And to say, look, whatever resource I have at my fingertip, you got it. Your family has it. Take my number, family. Now, that right there is an administrator. If I was in a position like that, I'd jump in a heartbeat, because that man sat there and made himself a family member that night or that afternoon. So it's very rare that we see that, especially during this time now.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I mean, we've had these conversations before in previous shows about, you know, why I deem administration to be outside of my preferences. But that's really what administration should be at its root and at its core, right? Is the liaison between teachers and community members and parents, not the divide between teachers and communities and parents, right? And I think, unfortunately, we see, like you said, sometimes a lot of these teachers, administrators using teachers as scapegoats for maybe some kind of issue or some kind of struggle that they're having, instead of being leaders. Leaders got broad shoulders, man. You got to be able to put stuff on your back and be able to carry it.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of administrators these days, they're not willing to do that, man.
They don't even come out the classroom, man. They're like turtles. They stay in their shell. I remember I worked in one school. The kids did not know who the principal was, because the principal never came out of the office. I'm like, this is crazy, you know.
And there's a lot of guys that, or not, I'm gonna say not guys. There are a lot of leaders that try to oscillate and figure out whether or not they want to be instructional leaders or culture leaders, or, you know, principals kind of have, or logistical guy, right? Some principals consider themselves to be logistics people. Man, we have to be able to find better building leadership.
Yes.
But especially when we start talking about urban communities and urban teachers and urban schools that are more authentic, man, and more willing to dig into the community. I do some work with Brookside Charter School, and their administration is really great about getting out into the community. They do home visits. I don't know a lot of schools that still do home visits with their principals and assistant principals, and have like a Facebook group where parents are able to communicate directly with the principal and assistant principals, and real like multiple avenues and colloquial ways for parents to be able to break down some of those social constructs and social barriers, to be able to get them to communicate effectively with administration in the building.
Right.
And I've seen a world of change just in terms of the way families and the way communities see the school, because they feel like they have an open and honest line of communication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Key word: communication is key. You know, like I tell my parents, I'm like, if you need something, let me know. Now, if I'm able to help you, I got you. If not, I'm sure I can put you somewhere where someone can help you, and I will check on you. Now, you made a good piece. You know, we talked about earlier about this being Social Emotional Health Month, and throughout this whole pandemic, we're seeing, you know, people's mental state kind of digress. And as the COVID numbers are spiking during this month, we're also seeing the need for social emotional health spiking also, especially when it comes to the classes. Now, in my school district, we were still able to have sports. And I told my athletes, I said, look, during football season, I said, you know, this is therapy for me. And some of the other coaches said, yes, same here, because I want to be around kids. And the kids said, you know what? Yeah, we want to be here. So
this is therapy for us too.
It sure is. And when they saw that was probably the closest I've ever been in that school to athletes, because we both knew we needed each other. And I mean, it was a joy. Like I would get done teaching, and if I was at home, I would get in the car. Practice started at 3:15. I got there at 2:30 just to receive the kids because I wanted to see them. I'm up here making relationships with the kids who ran cross country. I'm talking to the volleyball kids. I'm talking to every kid I see. How you doing? How you doing? How you doing? So, you know, it was extremely therapeutic. And I'm noticing that when that break happened between, you know, basketball, football, and wrestling, kids were like, you know what? I never wrestled before. I just need to be in the school building. I'm going to go ahead and wrestle. So, do you see that schools need to do something to keep these kids social with one another, because they're starting to shut down, man?
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things here, and I told you that it's Social Emotional Month, so I've been doing some other speaking around social emotional health, and there's a recent study that just came out of, I believe it's Yale University. They surveyed 5,000 U.S. educators about the 5 words that they were feeling right now as teachers. The 5 words that came out most prevalently were anxious, fearful, worried, overwhelmed, and sad. And that's teachers, right? I think you make a good point about the kids too, right? There's both ends of this where I think teachers like to call October Darktober and Longvember, right? These 2 months around the time change, the time shift, and then the season change is a really critical time for teachers. Sometimes, you know, we going into the building before the sun comes up, and we're leaving the building when after the sun is already down. Right. So there's just a lot of stress and strain and tension that exists inside of teachers and kids when it comes to not having the release of being social, being able to engage in activities that are outside of their own house. I mean, I've been sitting inside of this house since 6 a.m. this morning, and I gotta go. I'm itching to get out and just go like and like drive around a little bit. You know? And that kind of stuff can just be dangerous. You know, it can just be dangerous. My sister is a Black female yogi, and she is kind of specializing in not only diversity and equity and inclusion, but office yoga, right? And thinking about how yoga looks different in a COVID age. And all of us that are sitting at these desks for hours and hours and hours need a moment to do body checks, to do mindfulness, to do breathing exercises, to do chair stretches, to get our blood pumping and moving. And it's just some of the things that we may take for granted. You know, I remember thinking to myself today, back-to-back in Zoom era is different than back-to-back like meetings. And like, at least before, like you got to drive to the next meeting, or or you had to have 30 minutes of travel time to walk to the next meeting. Right now, it's just like click off one, click onto another, and I'm still sitting here. And, and that makes for really long, tough.
Yes.
And administrators, again, some administrators around the city aren't doing the right job of listening to families and teachers and adjusting for what we need.
You know, you made a good point in regards to the meeting back to back. Someone said, well, you teach online. That's easy. I said, no. I said, teaching online is a lot harder than teaching in the classroom. If you're an effective teacher, you should be worn out teaching online because you're looking at different screens, you're doing multiple hats, you're a tech person.
I gotta be bigger.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You got to troubleshoot technology. I mean, it is a lot. And then when you get done, all the forms you got to fill out to track things and the grading, it's now, no, I'm not complaining because I signed up for the job. I'm just saying it's not as easy as people say that it is. And on top of that, you know, some days you have a planned period, some days you don't. Now there is one teacher, and I kind of laughed at her when I first saw this. She's running down the hallway doing calisthenics. And I looked and I said, hey, what you doing? She said, I got to keep my blood pumping. I said, you know what? That's a good idea. So you know what I do? After each Zoom class, I get up and I go walk to the bathroom, or I walk to the office, or I walk down the hall, because I'm used to walking around. Like when I'm a teacher, I don't stay behind my desk. I'm all over the place. So you're right. Teachers, we got to get up and move and do something. Yeah. You know,
that's such a big one. The physical movement. I have had to find some different ways of unwinding and being present emotionally. So like I'm doing a lot more reading and being able to kind of substitute that physical movement and that physical constant movement for some mental constant movement and to kind of be continuously gaining something or working on something. But yeah, man, you can't stress enough how important it is for teachers to just pause for a moment some days and take a check. And I think as much as it's important for teachers to do that, let's take every moment we can with our kids to do the same thing, right? Like you know, don't what's good for the goose is good for the gander. That's right? Go ahead and take a moment and say, hey kids, I just took a walk. Have you taken a walk today? Right? Like, let's pause for a moment and take some deep belly breaths. Let's monitor our breaths and take a pause in between the inhale and exhale. Like, just taking a moment so kids feel like it's not just about on to the next.
Yeah,
go,
on to the next.
You know?
Yeah. You know, and like I got to give a shout out to a couple of my students. I know they're probably not listening because they don't know I do a radio show. Some of them don't. But a few of them, though, when they see that it's overwhelming for me, they take on the job of co-teacher. One kid said, Mr. Gethers, try this and this and this with that technology that you're doing. And it worked. I said, okay, you know what? You got buy-in now. So can you be my co-teacher with this technology piece? Sure. Got another kid. She's like my task manager. You know, like if I'm doing something and I kind of forget something, she say, Mr. Gethers, according to my notes, this is where you left off. Or let's do this here. One time I was doing a technology piece and the students weren't paying attention. And she said, look, y'all, pay attention. Let me show you from my computer. So, you know, I think teachers sometimes need to realize that, like you said, although our shoulders are broad, we have students that love to be helpers. Have those classroom helpers in your Zoom classrooms too. Assign certain jobs to students to help you out. You know, take some of that burden off of you, like for attendance. I sometimes ask, hey, do you all see such and such in class? No, sir, she's not here. Okay, thank you. Because it's hard to track 35 squares on there. So yeah, so have certain quadrants or do breakout rooms and have a kid do the attendance for that breakout room.
Yeah, so. And I think that, I mean, that's just a strategy that as an educator from the very beginning, right, to get engaged kids in your classroom, give them jobs, right, give them something to actually do so that they feel like they have a stake in the learning environment.
Right, exactly.
There's way too many of these classrooms that are one-sided, right, that go from teacher to kid, and that's like the traditional model of what education is. No, this is a collaborative learning environment. We're doing this together. Chris Emden calls them cogens, kind of like, off like rap ciphers, right, where kids are creating curriculum with each other in collaboration with the already existing syllabus.
Yeah, I like that.
Something synthesized for the whole class to be able to come up with and be able to get behind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what true learning is. And then we talk about asset-based versus deficit-based thinking. And when you come into classrooms thinking that, hey, I'm the master of knowledge here, I'm the teacher, y'all sit down, I'm gonna depart some knowledge on y'all. It's gonna be a whack class, bro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you gotta be able to get from them exactly the same amount that you given, right? And that's when, right, and with the jobs and the engagement and the, you know, the personnel, man, it turns into an environment that ain't just school.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is life. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? I love it. I'm glad I got out of teaching. I didn't sign up for that.
you know, I'm at the point right now to where, like I told someone, I'm a lifelong teacher, but it does not mean I have to stay in the classroom to teach.
I'm an educator.
I'm an educator. Like I remember, I think on one show you and I were talking about the role, and I said, well, we're not teachers, we're agents of education. That's what we are, because we take it a step further. You know, we educate outside the walls. We educate more than just children. You know, we educate everybody. And like,
right.
And the good thing about the whole the Zoom thing is you can personalize each classroom to your own benefit. You know, it's your world. Now, back to the whole cultural piece, I had someone tell me, now I'm glad you're sitting down for this, because if you were sitting here right now, you probably be like,
I might stand up.
Yeah, you'd be like, you know, let's so, but we'll probably talk more one-on-one about this. I've had a situation where, you know, I'm at one time I was the only of me in a situation, right? And you know, white woman told me, Tyrone, I'm gonna tell you something. I said, what's up? She said, you know, you can say something and they won't listen to you because you're a black man, but I can say the exact same thing that you say as a white woman and they listen to me. I don't like that. She said, that's messed up and it's wrong. So her and I worked together and we made some things happen with that. So she ended up leaving the profession. Leaving the building or whatnot. And then I had someone else come in. They said, yeah, I've noticed that. They don't listen to you because you're black. You know, you're a black male. And I'm like, you know, they keep saying that and saying that. So what I did, you know what? You know, okay, you don't have to listen to me, because really, to be quite honest, I'm not here for you to listen to me. So all the
other colleagues.
You said what now?
You meant other colleagues, not the kids.
No, the other colleagues. Yeah.
Right.
The other colleague. Now, because, you know, I talked to my father, he made a real good point. He said, I want you to think about what you do for a living. I said, okay. He said, you're there to educate children, not sit up and talk to other adults. I said, you know what? You got a good point. He said, as long as your kids listen to you, he said, last time I checked, you signed a contract to educate students. So if your students aren't listening to you, then that's a problem. But are they listening to you? I said, oh, yeah, every word. He said, then you good. He said, focus on that. And that was some of the best information he gave me. Now, of course, it's still messed up what the colleagues do. Whether it's, you know,
it's true. They ain't lying either.
Yeah. But when it comes down to it, are those kids learning? He said, how are your test scores? Are those kids coming to your class? Are those parents feeding and gelling with you? He said, you good. Don't worry about them. And that right there took a big load off of, you know, the social emotional behavior and the stress that I was having. I mean, a big weight was lifted off. It took that one conversation from someone from the outside looking in to say, you know what, try this.
Yeah, I had a lot of experiences with that in my teaching career. I call it misrecognized genius, right?
Oh,
a prototype genius, right? Where a lot of, like I said, white female administrators see success as the same way. It's a monolithic, white dominant way of thinking, and what success and what accomplishments look like mean a certain thing, right? It's about being close to whiteness. It's about speaking a certain way, having a certain tone, turn things in at the right time, right? Having great test scores. What we have to come to understand is that, you know, like we got to again redefine success, right? And I got to the point where you're right. Yeah, it was the kids listened to me, but At what point can we start changing structures without the ears and the hearts and the minds of those in charge, right? I agree with you. And for a long time, it was like, man, just shut my door. And in my classroom, and my kids are rocking.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't even just mean this metaphorically, but like I would shut my door and they would open it every day and stand outside, listen to what I was doing and try to criticize my teaching styles and criticize how my style wasn't great enough as compared to what they consider greatness. And I'm sitting here comparing scores. Like, what about the actual results? Right?
Same. Same,
so I
man.
Think that, man, I really hope that like Brothers Liberating Our Communities is an opportunity for me to start pushing boundaries and creating success in a different way, right? I see this other epidemic of like people getting degrees and people getting letters behind their name so that they can have access to certain spaces. And like, I get that. I understand that that's pretty much how it works. Like, I know how the game works. I'm also trying to liberate myself from the game that wasn't built for me, right? Like, I don't need to get a stamp of your smart approval from an ivory tower institution in order for me to be taken seriously inside of rooms fighting for liberation, right? Like, if you was really about liberation, you wouldn't be looking for my PhD. You would be listening to the things that are coming out of my mouth.
Exactly.
And I'm really pushing. I'm thinking about going back to school, thinking about not going back to school, but like I'm really pushing to be able to build an undeniable body of work and to redefine success from parameters from people that from ways that people haven't considered before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we may need to talk off camera because I think you're kind of knocking on the same door I've been knocking on. There's another brother that's in the group also, Donnell Fletcher. He's been really pushing me to make a move. So we'll talk one time, sit down, you and I, and just talk about what I think you're talking about. But I do want to say that you made a point when you talked about your liberation. Another piece is you have these schools when you come in. When we as black males come in, they want us to teach like the majority. I told one, and sometimes it's messed up because sometimes some of the oppression that you see sometimes come from a black administrator. There's an article that was written that was shared with me that talks about some of the bulk of the discrimination that blacks get is from black administrators that are pushing this agenda.
Kinfolk ain't kinfolk.
Show ain't. I mean, so I peeped this out and I was looking, I said, well, I had a black administrator pretty much tell me verbatim that I need to teach like a white woman. And I said, I cannot teach like a white woman because I'm not a white woman. She has her way of doing things. I have my way of doing things. Last time I checked, education is not a one-way street. It's multiple routes to a stem. That's how it goes. That blossoms into a beautiful product. Each route represents a different teacher, different avenue, different classroom that all feeds education. So for you to sit up here and tell me to teach like young lady here, no, it's not going. That's disrespectful because you're telling me that how I am is not wanted here. So,
or it's not good enough.
Right. It's not because
it's deficit-based thinking. Of like, who cares? Who cares how you think you should teach?
Exactly.
Here's what you should strive to be like.
Because our black face should not be the face of that school. However, if you look at it, come on now, what does the research show? When you ask students who's your favorite teacher, if there's a black male teacher in that mix, oh yeah, we in there. I've had white students. You know what? I went to a school district and I had some kids come to me and say, wow, I've never had a black male teacher before and I love it. They were all white students. They loving this. I'm sitting up here. I had a guy, I think I told you this before. A guy came to me as a dad. He said, hey man, my daughter said that you was teaching Malcolm X in class. I said, yes, it was. She also said that you were using grassroots as a reference base. I said, yeah, I did. He said, okay. I want to thank you, man. We really need to hear that, man. I support you, man. Whatever you need me to do. We talk about it at home too. When she came home and said it, I was like, great. I look like, man, okay, all right. So I mean, it's seeing that is like, I am needed. We are needed. So, but
all students benefit from having black male educators.
We do.
I was talking about the student that I was helping do the private tutoring with earlier. I'm sitting through one of his classes, and my specialty is in history, so I love sitting through his history class. And he's in a suburban school, and they're doing a whole Tyrone. They did a whole 90 minutes about Thomas Jefferson, right? And about, they start the lecture, and I'm sitting there thinking like, okay, this is gonna be interesting. Like, I can't wait to hear what this lady got to say about Thomas Jefferson. So 30 minutes in, I'm like, still haven't heard anything about Sally Hemings. Okay, we're gonna keep it going. About an hour in, I'm like, you know what? Stop this lady. Here, read this, right? And we talk about what Monticello and Sally Hemings and all these things. And he is, astounded. The student is astounded by this information that's not being presented to him by his teacher, but by his student, right? And then at the end of the lecture, last 5 minutes of the lecture, Tyrone, she goes, and then there was some scandals about allegedly Thomas Jefferson was having some affairs with a slave, and he has some descendants that are of African American descent. And this kid loses his mind, bro. He's like, what? What do you mean allegedly? I just sat here and read all this stuff and heard this true story about Sally Hemings, and like, how can she say that? And it was such a moment where I like had to sit back like, man, if I wouldn't have been here, this kid never heard those stories, right? This kid would never got that lesson. And look at how impassioned the truth has made this kid, right? Without hearing that story, and this is a kid from affluent background. He's gonna grow up to be a policymaker. He's going to grow up to be a white male in this space is going to be important. And for him to have a black male as his only educator, probably this year in person, right, is going to be impactful for him, not just in hearing the truth, but in understanding the discrepancies in ways that he's hearing or seeing the world versus how I'm hearing and seeing the world. And that empathy right there, just from experiencing an educated black male, is valuable.
It's a beautiful thing. I've had students. They will tell you that I will inject my culture into my lessons all the time. And someone said, well, "Why do you do that?" I said, because media shows them that we're not educated. So when they see that this educated man came from this beautiful, rich culture and this history, I want to be a part of that. So when I had students drawing, we decorated a door for Black History Month, and they did that, and they were like, man, this is great. I didn't know all this from Africa. I said, yeah. I mean, it's a rich country. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Rich continent. And we start talking about individual countries. I got Freudian slip. And I had them locate all the riches that came from those different countries. And they were like loving it. They were waving the red, black, and green. We had kids rocking the solidarity fist. I had one kid tell her daddy, "Nah, man, you wrong, daddy. This has nothing to do with negativity. It's about solidarity." And her dad looked at her, and the mama said, "Yeah, you might want to listen to her." Right in front of me, and I'm like this. So I mean, it's a beautiful thing. And then like I also tell kids, I'm like, look, I'm gonna say this too. I don't want you thinking that every white person is evil. No. So now I start talking about John Brown. And when I start talking about John Brown, oh man, those kids said, what? Jaw dropped. I told them about the story about John Brown when he was sitting at his table with a brother. White man came in and said, "What's this doing at your table?" They said by the time John Brown got through with that man, he was apologizing to the brother. "I'm sorry." Man, hey, John Brown didn't play.
Yeah, he was a mean dude, bro.
Sure was.
It's such a good lesson for all kids, especially black kids, right? To know that there are accomplices in this work, right? That racism is an institution and a set of systems. It's not the lady down in the hall. It's not the teacher that you don't like. It's not even the microaggression that you are feeling or experiencing, right? And to give kids that type of context and language and have those tough conversations, man, that's what's changing the world, right, man? We got a young generation of change agents that are coming up in a time where they looking around, they see that this shit ain't right.
Oh,
right?
dear
Looking around and seeing
yeah.
that this doesn't feel right. Asking their parents, how did we even get here? And like I think that one young white lady out of I think it's Sweden, that Greta, the girl that's fighting climate change.
Yeah, Nobel Prize winner. Yeah,
man, her and like the young lady out of Iran,
Malala.
Malala, man, we got a young generation of firecrackers.
Yes, revolutionaries. Yeah. I mean, you know, I look back and I'm like, okay, I could pass the torch. But you know, now we done crept up on the end of our show. I gotta get you back on, man.
That's crazy, man. Yeah. That hour be flying by.
Do it, dude. See what good conversation does? Cornell, I want to thank you for coming in and if anyone wants information on how to get in contact with you or the block or your tutorial services or your speaking services, go ahead and plug yourself, man.
Yeah, man. You can always find me at Brothers Liberating Our Communities on Facebook. You can just send a quick message on there. If you're a black male educator, search Block KC on Facebook, and you can join the private black male educator group where we get together and have discussions and post articles. You can follow us on all the social medias and just email me personally, Cornell, CORNELL, at theblockkc.org.
Right on, man. I appreciate you being in. And on my closure, we're in a time where we're in a pandemic. All right. You're not alone. Find individuals that are supports to you. Lean on them. Group up, link up, join up, and fight this together. You are not alone. Also, use the situation to help you grow and help you to build your empire to help benefit those who it needs to serve. I'm Tyrone Gethers Jr., back in the Inkwell with my man Cornell Ellis. In the Inkwell, education is ink, let it overflow and stay permanent. God bless.
All right, you're listening to KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio station.
All right, man. Appreciate you. I'll be in touch.
YouTube, but listen to our audio only, where you'll get shows like Cheryl Underwood and Blues Time in the City. You can pick us up at www.kuaw.org or go to the TuneIn app and search KUAW. Listen to us. We're on 24 hours a day. That's KUAW Radio, Kansas City's global community radio.